Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Stop, Look, and Listen. I'm your host, LaTroy Gardner. This week, we have a very special guest, a multi-hyphenate. We have a doctor, an author, an actor, a plant-based expert. But you all know him from this R&B group from the 90s. If I Ever Fall in Love, Comforter, Baby I'm Yours, The Place Where You Belong, so on and so on. From Shai, Garfield Bright. Let me correct it. Dr. Garfield Bright. Welcome to the show.
It. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate that illustrious introduction. It's like, yo, is that me? You're like, oh yeah, yes, I am. Oh yeah, I did. Okay. But I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
No doubt, no doubt. So we are now entering the Garfield Bright experience.
With your help for sure.
No doubt. So I mean, dude, you're aging like fine wine.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, for real. I try to stay in shape as much as possible. And
what's the secret to that?
Man, I don't know if there's a secret. I just know what I do, and but I've seen others who are of this same mindset who seem to be preserving themselves quite well too, and giving your blood a chance to cleanse itself is important. Drinking water, for me, being plant-based keeps down the mucus content in my body, and that's where disease and germs and stuff that get you sick live. If you don't have a lot of that in you, it's not really a grapple hole for them for those things to kind of live in your body, and you stay more alkaline. I mean, think about it. When you're getting over the flu or anything, what's the first thing that happens? You start draining. That's when all the mucus and stuff starts draining, because it's leaving your body in that mucus where it was kept in the first place. So if you can keep the mucus down, you probably can age better, keep the fluids going, especially water, and just not overworking your stomach muscle with a whole bunch of hard to digest foods like beef and stuff like that. I think that might do it, but I think it's really even more than that. Those have its benefits, but I think a lot of it is a state of mind kind of thing too. And to prescribe exactly what that is hard to put your finger on, because it's perspectival, it varies per person. But there are a lot of people who have all kind of bad habits, but they have a certain spirit about them and a certain way of seeing the world, and it keeps the pros, optimistic kind of outlook or a realistic outlook, and they can face that and put that somewhere. And that in and of itself is like food. It nourishes people to have a self-awareness and also have a worldview that is complementary, and you can live with it. And people be drinking and smoking in that kind of state of mind, but they live a long time. And so some of it's genetics, but I think a lot of it is your spirit and how you think and how you see the world. And so I don't really have a secret or a silver bullet, but I just do the things that I can control. I try to make sure that I do, do my best.
Exactly. Only worry about what you can control. Yeah. Keep positive energy around you.
Yeah.
And then, like you mentioned, you're a plant-based expert. So when did you decide to go all in?
This expert thing. Pork that early on, and I was basically pescatarian, or mostly I would eat chicken too, but when about 6 years ago, somewhere along the line, I just finally got fed up, because the only meat, they pretty much, I had cut everything out. I was eating fish and chicken at that point, mostly, when I did consume some kind of blood-based food. And usually chicken is just so plentiful and around, you either getting a piece of chicken or a chicken cutlet on your sandwich, or chicken thing from Chick-fil-A, or chicken fried rice, or it's just in so many forms. And it was like, you could just tell it was so hormoned up. And it's like, I could just feel it, and I just quit. One morning I woke up, I was like, I quit. I'm not eating chicken no more. And the same day I cut out chicken, I cut out soda and sweet tea, because it was so much sugar. I already got a bad habit of drinking coffee, and bad, not too many. Some people say the antioxidant properties is good, but I drink coffee. And so I was like, and I drink water. That's pretty much it. And so, I just decided to just go for it at that point. And it took me a while to finally find a sweet spot, because you got to figure out what you can eat, how much portions of it. You start losing some weight because you really don't have a good understanding of how to do what you're trying to do, but you know what you want, you don't what you don't want. And once you finally find that little balance in the sweet spot, and you regulate back out, and you understand certain eating patterns and certain foods when you go to bed, like I eat my fatty foods at night so I can sustain my weight, like my avocado stuff, I eat that. That'll be the fed stomach going to sleep on it. And that through the night when my metabolism is churning, I think that fattiness helps me sustain this 210-pound kind of weight that I'm at. And I'm cool with 210. That's pretty cool. 6'4", 210. I feel good. And but you learn things, and then you find certain foods that do the trick and satiate you in certain ways. But the main thing is, a lot of people don't understand is you got to keep it kind of simple. That's the headspace. I don't think it's for everybody, because people want to find like substitutes for the meat. They have those products, but you can't. That ain't really how I do it. Like I really eat a lot of raw vegetables and cut them up, or I'll maybe stir fry them a little bit for the night meal when I eat my hot meal. But I really try to eat the foods, like really eat the earths, blend them, juice them. I got a dope juicer by Nama, Nama. It's the best juicer out there, and the pulp don't have nothing left in it. And
right.
You get all that stuff, and your body starts building up, and it starts looking good in your skin, and with the water you drink, and then next thing you know, you're feeling good. You don't have those same pains that you might have had a little while ago. It just we all getting old, so it's gonna be certain stuff that's happening that you be like, dang, where'd that come from? But for the most part, I really feel good. I really have no complaints.
Yeah. So I guess throw out like a meal suggestion for those that are possibly transitioning into veganism.
Oh, wow. Well, I was just first, before I thought a meal suggestion, like, look up do some research if it's going to be a lifestyle change. Like really go into it first, in a kind of intellectual way, and kind of look at, like, shop around mentally and see what fits you best in that world. Because there's different levels and layers of how people do it. One might fit you better than the other version of it. So before I even give you a meal, maybe the mode of being a plant-based person, which one you want to kind of sink into. And then you, with the thought of, rent to own, like you might want to graduate to another step later, but this is, do that stuff first. And, I got stuff for me that I like, that I deal with. Like I chop up a lot of just, veggies, a lot of onions, a lot of green peppers, and mushrooms, because of the alkaline stuff, properties and stuff like that. And put them together. I put that on like this stuff called, it's called rice. It's not really rice, but it's made out of plant-based stuff. I mix it, just simple stuff for my hot meals, put some avocado on it. Or I make a lot of just big, huge salads with a lot of, kale, or I'll juice all that stuff.
Yeah, me too.
But it should be the same, but it's the same kind of stuff over and over. But I like that. Like I'm cool with that. And I know what it's doing for me. So I look forward to it. And then, when I get the little treats, like the like banana based like smoothie bowls. It's like ice cream almost, but it's got all kind of it's all good. Like, and it's like you can't even, when it's freezing cold, it just ooh, and stuff like that is a treat, man. Like you don't even, and that becomes a lifestyle, because you don't even start like missing the other stuff, And it's not that I don't like the other stuff no more. Like I just stopped liking, Popeyes when I walk past. I respect that smell, to be like, ooh, that smell. but I know that's going to generate all that mucus, and it's not going to ultimately, keep me here. So
yeah, the size of that chicken sandwich is kind of out of control. Like what chicken did that come from? I was like, wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. A lot of genetically modified stuff. And you got to think about the big businesses of it. Like for people who doubt that and they think it's conspiracy, like think about if you were a big business and you got to mass produce on a daily millions and millions of chicken sandwiches and the like, and you got to come up with that every day of the week, 365 days a year for years. As soon as you can find some kind of shortcut, and the FDA might not be on your back about it or something like that, and it cut costs, as a bottom line business person, you're going to try that if you can get away with it with that big of a business, even though it's unethical, because people conflate ethicality, if you will, with business. The bottom line in business is amoral. It's just making more than last time is successful by any means. They don't have more business, and morality is not the same. Capitalism and morality don't go hand in hand. So they'll do those shortcuts, and you got to be on guard about that as a consumer out there, because Like Subway just got figured out about some tuna stuff that ain't have no tuna in it. You know what I'm saying? Lord knows what the bread is made out of. With stuff like that, and all the filler that they put in to make the dough stretch. And you got to believe that a lot of them cutting costs in those kinds of ways, especially if it's not going to show up causing cancer or something like that. It's just going to get you fat. You know what I mean? It's easy to camouflage that plausible deniability on that. So yeah, you think the big corporate companies ain't thinking in those terms, trying to cut costs and get the bottom line to increase based on just those aspects? You better believe it. And as long as you're not or just none the wiser, they'll keep doing it till somebody blows a whistle or something like that. But yeah, this is capitalism at its finest. They ain't nothing really honest no more out there like that.
Well, speaking of capitalism, any thoughts of opening your own vegan spot or food truck?
Nah, I'm just, I just live the way I live. And if people ask me, I give them my little 2 cents based on what I've found to be true, based on, experience, practices or whatever. But there are a lot of other people who are like into the really, really into food forestry and really, really into understanding the earth in those ways. And, those types of people in the entrepreneurial spirit, a lot of them are putting together the food trucks. And I'm cool. I'm thankful for it. I'm never saying never though, because it might be something that I fall in to another person and we connect and we do something like that. You know what I mean? And I would love to do something like that, but hadn't thought of it. But you never know. That's something cool because I love those trucks better than anything. Like those food trucks they simplify their product. They specialize in 1 or 2 things and they do that well. Right. So then you go there, you're going to get and they make it with the love right there on the spot a lot of times. And I just like the concepts of those food trucks, man,
All right. So let's take it back to the beginning. You from Massachusetts?
Yeah, well, yeah, actually I grew up, I'm gonna take the whole, the second part of my life. Like I came of age there. Like I was born in Nashville, Tennessee, Meharry Hospital, for those people down there who know about Meharry Hospital, the boys and people like that came through Nashville. And then I moved to Knoxville when I was about 4 years old. And Raccoon Village, whoever, people, it's off Kingston Pike, Rutledge Pike or wherever. I don't like Kingston, but Rutledge, go in, it's real country. And I was there till I was like 6, went to Montgomery, Alabama. My parents moved to Montgomery. So from the 1st grade to the 7th, I was kind of in the 8th grade, but halfway through that year, I moved to, that's when my dad was working with the National Education Association, moved to Boston, Massachusetts. And I moved up there to, be with my dad around 12 years old. And that's where I kind of came of age. And, in the summer times, I would come back to Montgomery, be with my mom, go back up to, Boston. And my dad moved to Brockton after a while. And, and when I was in college, I would come back to Brockton and stuff like that, and then visit New York a lot too. So that kind of, all that stuff shaped me. So I'm like a amalgam of the South, the New England area, and a little bit of the Tribeca situation popping off. So
which accent did you love the most?
I don't know, man. All of them are still living in me. I'll say certain words, certain ways.
Yeah.
You hear all of it coming out, I think. You know what I mean? It's just, I think, but the biggest influence on me, I think, was when I lived in Massachusetts, from 12 to like 18, 19 years old, just coming of age and being around friends. And, I just thought, I guess, to the people down south, I sounded like them. To them, I sounded like a country dude still. So I was never self-aware to hear myself until I started like being out. When I got to Howard, I could hear myself bevied against other people more. And I was like, oh yeah, I do sound like a little, okay, I get it, but yeah, it's just it's a mutt. It's a mutt.
Okay. So so was like music your first love, or did you play basketball, get into modeling?
I played basketball. That was my really first love. I went to Brockton High School and, my senior year, we were like by USA Today standards, we were ranked 22 in the nation with that list they come out with, top 25. Mm-hmm. We had just won state, I was shooting guard. I had made AAU. I was, I had some D2, a couple of little D1, little noted people checking me out and stuff like that. But I love music. I love hip hop. I used to rhyme and stuff back around my hood and pop and stuff like that. And hip hop was my thing. Just really into that scene. And it was some singers in the hip hop world that always like intrigued me, like TJ Swan from Biz Markie, them crew.
Making music with their mouth biz.
Yeah, and then on Force MDs, that used to be the Force MCs.
Yeah.
Full Force, Bow-Legged Lou and all them, and there's some others too along the way within that they had this singing thing that was like, okay, oh, even Slick Rick sometimes when he break into some of his stuff.
Oh yeah.
So that made me feel like, okay, you know what I'm saying? If you want to sing, it's cool as long as you flip it right. That's something to be respected too. So I kept it there. So when it finally presented itself, it was an easy transition because we came along not only in the golden age of R&B, but that was a like a Renaissance period, but it was the golden age of hip hop too at the same time.
Exactly.
So we were all made out of that hip hop scene that just happened to be singers, a lot of us during that time period.
So, and they talk about the R&B cats was harder than the rappers a lot of times. Like Keith Sweat was robbing cats.
Well, see, people don't understand Keith Sweat. One, he's a New York dude. Two, he come from a Wall Street background.
Yeah.
Like Keith Sweat is a hell of a business mind that happened to understand that he could, he had talent in the music industry with production and writing songs. He's a cold songwriter. He don't get credit for that too. And so his longevity is definitely due to his iconic hits. But he knows, because he worked on Wall Street and he understands bottom line thinkers and thinking, his way of navigating the industry was different, the way he ingratiated himself with the program director. Like he was ahead of the curve. And so he's still a force, you know what I mean? But he was also a karate dude I was hearing. Like he'll kick you, you know what I'm saying? He'll put that foot in you real quick.
Oh, wow.
You gotta love it, man. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, people like Christopher Williams wasn't taking no L's. It was a few people that least expected. It's a few R&B dudes that was kind of hardcore.
Yeah, Bobby Brown.
Oh yeah, everybody knew about Bobby Brown. He came from, Dudley around the Orange Line in Boston. I used to get off there to go to the Kite Festival past the Boys Club. But yeah, that was some good times, man. But yeah, it was a lot of cats that grew up in R&B, especially during Bobby Brown's time period. Like you had a lot of the moguls in the industry heads that was kind of hardcore, kind of type that you had to make sure you was on point, making sure your stuff was tight dealing with. And, Teddy Riley was coming up and through that era. He came from that school of, sharks out there. He was a young dude in the industry having to make sure so that, that part of the game, a lot of them don't get that story doesn't get told about how they had to it was a head trip and young dudes with all that talent having to navigate all these sharks that saw dollar signs from them and how they had to produce, but then also keep their sanity, and what that did for them going forward later on when they start getting groups and stuff. So that story should be told too. That's I think in terms of research, that's
yeah. Well, I mean, just tell us about the group's experience with that, navigating the sharks.
Yeah, that's, man, that was my dissertation spoke to that. That's what it was on, how Black males navigate inequitable power spaces. I looked at how Black males navigate the classroom experience, and also how Black male artists navigate the industry. And I found that it's 4 phases to that situation that everybody fit neatly into. And it was the trial and error phase. Like when you first get into the industry, that there's a business side to it, but you think as an artist, the business side will kind of wrap itself around what I'm doing with my art. It'll kind of the dots will be connected, but we're wrong. It's like the trial and error phase, right? And then once we start feeling like, hold up, I've all of a sudden I'm turning from an artist to a product maker. Something is weird about this, what I'm saying? Like my art has now, as soon as I drop it, becomes product, it's not art anymore. It's under the behest of a label. It's a commodity now that's out of my control. I'm just a baby maker of it. And so then there's a peep game stage. And so the peep game stage is just that calibration point where you had that trial and error. You thought things were going to take care of itself, and you realizing that no, not only will it not take care of itself, but the business part predominates the artistic side of things. You're on the conveyor belt, and along with your product, you're a human product. So now you peeping game on how that works. Now you're trying to figure out a way to ride that wave now that you've entered this realm, but save face at the same time. Play the game enough and save face at the same time to where you can go to sleep at night. But now you know that you're a product maker instead of an art maker. And so then there's this new attitude phase where after you peep game and put a few of them jewels in your back, now you got a new attitude about what this is you're in, and now you're moving accordingly to those new dictates. And then the last one is experience is the best teacher. You have certain hardcore lessons that you take away from these experiences that you actually transfer over into your regular life. They become stalwarts and mantras in your own world. Like some people don't conflate business situations with just hiring your friends. You know, don't mix those, like certain people operate like that now because of the industry experience. In real life, they do that same thing when they're making moves, they get into real estate, and they'll hire somebody that they know is qualified before they hire somebody that's their friend on it. Like they've learned that lesson. You know, like me, at Georgia State, I came up with a program, and because I was in the industry, one of the first things you do is you protect your intellectual property. You write a song, you get a copy written. Like, you know that. You know somebody else the joint real quick. Like, you know this. So when I created a program at Georgia State, albeit that I was a student in a building, I was using my laptop. I wasn't using any resources. And two, I got my program copywritten, you know, and so that made the university, like the MO of a lot of universities is if you're in their area or the department, they'll take your program as theirs, even though you're the engine for it. They'll put their name on it as if it's their stuff, and they'll have the rights to it too. I was like, in my mind, like, I'll be damned if I'm gonna end up going to like Cali somewhere and I want to do my program and I gotta ask them for permission to run my program that I created. No. So it ended up forcing them to be a partner with me. Georgia State had to partner with me on that program, which elevated that program status even more from what I needed it going forward and stuff like that. But other than that, if I hadn't, they would have taken my intellectual property under the auspices of me being like, you know, a student in the ranks, as opposed to me being a human being who came up with this dope program that they want to partner with, you know. And so that was something that I carried directly from the music industry in terms of my thought pattern and how to deal with that. And it carried over. So I'm saying there's other experiences of other artists who that same format, you know, like Tracy Lee, who was in my dissertation. His takeaway was so hardcore, you know, experience being the best teacher, that the brother actually became an entertainment attorney on the heels of how he felt he was done. He needed to know, his quest to know what this was supposed to be like drove him actually to notch it up, level up even higher and get a degree in that, specialize in that, you know what I'm saying? So he really went to the business of music business side and learned it in the whole situation so he could help our other artists coming up in the future, but better arm himself too. So that's a life move he made that was business centric pretty much. So
yeah, I've been trying to get Tracy on the show for a while, honestly.
That's my guy, man. Philly's own.
Yes, sir.
True spitter.
Yeah, and you both attended Howard University. Why did you choose Howard, and just talk about your HBCU experience?
It's so shallow, but I'll tell you the truth. When I was in 11th grade, living in Brockton, Mass, it was all snowing outside, and my dad worked for the National Education Association. He had a big, huge like meeting where everybody had to meet at headquarters in Washington, D.C., and it happened to coincide with my spring break. And he was like, "Hey, man, you want to roll with me to D.C.?" You know, and I was like, "Is that a trick question?" Yeah. So, you know, I rolled with Pops, you know, to D.C., and while he was having this meeting, it was on a Friday at 11:45. He dropped me off at Howard while he went down a couple of blocks, down the block where his headquarters was. And I was sitting on the steps in front of the Fine Arts Building, looking directly across at the clock tower, you know, the big, huge one against the top of the library. And to my right was Douglas, and to my left was Locke. And so I didn't know, you know, I was just at Howard feeling cool about being on the college campus, you know, because I had grown up on the Alabama State campus, so I was comparing it. 12 o'clock hit, that clock said, doo, 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 doo. All the doors open in a flurry, like boom. And out came pouring from like every egress imaginable, the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life in like tonnage. Like it was just like, it was almost scary. Like, you know what I'm saying? It was so surreal. It was almost a scary, like I was living in a Salvador Dali painting or something, but it was just like with the women from the Marvin Gaye painting. Those women, but they was Howard's women. You know, so in my 11th grade body and mind, I was like, yo, hold up. I already knew about the legacy. I was well schooled on the legacy, so I was proud of that. And I was conscious, you know, I was one of the starters of the Afro-American club in my high school. You know, I was conscious already, and I knew that Howard was a rich legacy. But I wasn't ready for what I saw in terms of the females. That was like mind blowing. Like, yo,
that's what got me. That's what got me.
I told my dad I'm coming here, and that's the only school that I applied to. Like, if I hadn't got accepted, I didn't accept any of those basketball offers or anything. I'd have just been sitting at home. But luckily, I got accepted into Howard, and the rest became history.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm thinking like during your era, just some of the the who's who of Howard alumni gracing the campus at the time. Puff, Taraji P.
Yeah, all kind of
Anthony Anderson. We already mentioned Trey Lee. Ananda, Michelle and Deggy Ocello. Was she there?
I don't remember her being in Howard. I know she was really in DC, and she probably come to Howard all the time to the Fine Arts Building, just like us. But Eric Roberson.
Was Gus Johnson there?
Gus, yep, sure was.
Paula J. Parker.
Yo, Paula for sure. I knew Paula back then. And then what's your man on ESPN? Oh man, because I know his brother. I know two dudes on ESPN. Well, first,
is he on Sports Center?
Yeah, he on Sports Center.
Jay Harris.
No.
Not Jay Harris.
I'm tripping right now because I'm looking. Hold up, it's Verrett. Stan Verrett.
Stan Verrett.
Yeah, because his brother, Rory went to Howard with me, and then the other one, light skin. I got my man, Chris Broussard.
Okay.
His brother, the younger brother Terrence, was one of my closest buddies up at Howard. Like, so Chris was always like, I knew about Chris before, I guess he done blew way up now, but he was blowing up back then. He was making a name for himself back then. But I remember hearing about him through his brother and stuff. So all that was connected through Howard too for me.
Yeah, and then Raz Baraka.
Oh, Raz, well, that was my guy because he was the head of the organization I was in, Black Near Force. We took over the A building and stuff like that. Like we were really in it, like in the trenches together. Speaking of Raz, in the same group, Jelani Cobb, the writer, the journalist that you see, he was part of Near Force with us too. Mm-hmm. Yep, he was part of that organization. And April Silver was a female. Public Enemy used to come. Lisa Williamson used to come through and politic with us and stuff like that. It was a real different time back then, where the hip hop was based on some real consciousness back in the times. For some reason, it was like a resurgence, like a neo civil rights kind of mentality, but with hip hop as the fuel. It was different.
All right, so I'm gonna tie a few things together with this question because back in 2009, when my other show, the Good Old Boys show, first started, you was one of our first interviews, probably the second interview we had.
Oh, wow.
And I remember you telling a story about Eric Roberson getting booed at a talent show. But before you get into that story, I want you to talk about how you met the other group members of Shai. I know you was roommates with Darnell.
Me and D were roommates our freshman year, and then Darnell, after our freshman year, Darnell went on to Pledge Alpha, and he met the other two guys. They were Alpha Phi Alpha guys, and we all kind of met back up together my senior year in preparation for this big talent show at Howard that we did, which is the only show we ever did before we got signed. But it was like the Apollo. It was a real pressure cooker. People were getting booed at this show, and it had no bearing on their talent level because Eric Roberson killed Pretty Brown Eyes. And that was the first time I had ever heard Pretty Brown Eyes before I even heard Stokely and them sing it. I heard Eric Roberson singing it. I thought he had written it because I knew he was a talented songwriter. And I thought that was something he had written. And somebody had to play the other. I was like, dang, and he sounded just like Stokely, killing it. Like E. Roberson is incredible. Everybody on that show was incredible. Like Tracy Lee, Dawn Allen from Pure Soul, which is Debbie Allen's niece, I think. And a couple of more, and then then we were on there, and I think we went last, and I think we just got lucky to go last because I think the people were just wore out in terms of just trying to boo anything that hit the stage just to have fun at everybody's expense. I think they just listened to what we had, and they ain't boo us. You know what I mean? But the people who got booed, like E. Roberson, it wasn't because they were incredible. Like I was like mad because I wanted to hear the song being finished.
Right.
You know what I mean? But yeah, it was just one of them kind of crowds. It was full of like the New York football team type of crowd. It's Friday night, you know what I mean? Alcohol is in play. People just rowdy. They want to have some fun. They want to just, make it the Apollo. They ain't no Sandman up there, but they want to boost something just so they can be empowered to do it at everybody's expense. But some of the richest talent at Howard was up there giving it their all, killing it. Everybody got record deals that was up there too. You know what I mean? Eventually. So yeah, that's what that was. We just got lucky. And that was a moral victory that we getting booed. We sung a lot of Boys to Men covers that day. And then, once we finished that, we went off, but they gave us a little encore. And we were like, what are we going to sing? And then all we had was like our little practice songs, and one of which was a cappella. So we didn't need our DAT anymore to do it. We can just go to the front of the stage and be huddled up and did the ooh, da-da-do,
Mm-hmm.
By the second time the chorus came around, the whole crowd was singing the song. It was like, dang, maybe we have something here for sure. Because if they singing a song as much grief as they gave everybody tonight,
right, you got something.
Yeah.
All right, well then let's talk about one of those practice songs. If I Ever Fall in Love, #1 R&B hit.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, let's talk about like creating the song, because the group wrote and produced pretty much all of your.
Well, Carl wrote those words to that song. Out of the group, Carl wrote that song particularly. The lyricals, Carl came up with that. When you do talk about the music version, though, you got to give more of the the credit to Mark and Darnell, the musical, the music version. They kind of like, Darnell brought the sample, that dum 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 dum. That was a what's my man? What's my man, the producer from back in the Shaft days, Isaac Hayes.
Oh yeah,
that's an Isaac Hayes sample.
Yeah.
When you hear "If I Ever dum 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 dum," that came from him, and then the whole change into the ooh 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 instead of ooh da da do. The harmonies, the melody is a little bit different than the acapella, and then all of that stuff was coming from mostly like Mark and Darnell too with the arrangement. So, but Carl wrote the lyrics for that for sure. That's something that he came up with. Yep.
Did you prefer the acapella or the?
I love both, man. I never could decide between the two. They both, because I feel like the acapella was like, it hits you as spiritual because there was nothing in the way of the audience and you connected. There was no track. It was just our chords and their ears, and it was a spiritual moment almost, in terms of the crescendos. But the music version, I think, added an element of like a sexy type of element to the equation, the way it moved and the slow jam, quiet stormness of it, and just the smoothness of the oohs instead of ooh da da doop, the turkey jerky of that. It's just more smoothed out. You know what I mean? So it's a different feel on both, and I like both of those feels. They represented those feels well. So I just, whichever one came on, I wasn't mad at either one of them. They just played it so much during that time. I was kind of like, I ain't gonna lie, I was kind of tired of my own song for a minute. Like, damn, I want to hear some Brian McKnight or some Mint Condition or something. You know what I mean?
I was in middle school at the time, and it was pretty much a talent show staple.
Yeah.
Now, of course, they didn't sound as good as you all, but
we made it original, so people always give props to the original. But I heard a lot of people do it, killing it. You know what I'm saying? Killing it. A lot of the group, like Drew Hill, just had a little video recently where they sung a little bit of it at one of their shows because the power went out or something, and they just had to go ahead and hit them with some acapella stuff, and they chose that one to go ahead and blow, and they killed them. I'm a Drew Hill fan. I like
Me too. Yeah. So that was back when the leading lady played a janitor.
Our video made no sense.
She was a lousy janitor, by the way.
Our video had no. It was a dude named Ian Fletcher. He had done some videos for the Booyah Tribe, and he was more of an ambiance kind of dude with a real eclectic spirit, artiste type. You could easily see him like next to Bob Ross with a palette, putting some paint on. Like he was that bohemian kind of like type of dude, and he just cared about the sweeping landscapes and the beauty, and I guess the symmetry of sweeping landscapes and somebody mopping some kind of way that kind of like has some kind of real loose symmetry to it. So he went with that, having an excuse to put a pretty girl in there. But plot-wise, it made nothing. It had nothing to do with the song. It had nothing to do with it was just but luckily the song was strong enough to where people kind of swallowed that for us and just kind of like, oh, whatever,
Nah, we were good when she ended up on the beach. That's when I was good.
With a bathing suit on, right? But, that was Nikki. That was Nikki Patberg, and she ended up being one of Janet's dancers after a little while. Like, and that was a real big thing back then. If you could become, if you made it to be a Janet dancer, because Janet dancers was woo.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Still love Janet to this day. So If I Ever Fall in Love, the album, which dropped in December of '92.
We had 2 weeks to do that album.
2 weeks.
They only gave us 2 weeks because they want to monetize that song and be able to get $20 for it. That song being on the album to sell 20, as opposed to selling a single. But that allowed us to have creative control over our project because they couldn't get us with producers and then so they were like, whatever y'all got. And we had a cappella, basically piano accompaniment versions of Comforter and Baby I'm Yours already written too. And so those were easy to kind of like retro fix. So, add a little more here, there to make a track. And those were kind of easy because the vision was already there. And then, we did some some newer joints on there. But it took us 2 weeks, 12 hours a day, locking out the studio from midnight to noon, or noon to midnight rather, every day for 2 weeks. And we got our album done on time, and we were able to put it out just in time for Christmas break where everybody quits.
Yeah. So the album went double platinum. Congrats.
Yeah, it ended up going triple platinum, actually.
Triple platinum? Well, congrats to that too.
Yeah, it shipped out. It tripped me out.
So Comforter, which was my favorite song on the first album.
It was an interesting story behind Comforter being even released. It almost didn't get released.
Why not?
We Comforter was purely like a collateral damage, like in terms of how the label must have seen it. Because look, but we won because of it. So we're in the marketplace doing promotional tour shows, and people like you are saying, yo, I like that If I Ever joint, man, but that Comforter joint. And so the Black people were responding to us that way in the marketplace. And we had been alienated from the Black marketplace because they put us overseas immediately when we got a record deal. We were in Europe. Our song was blowing up in the States. We were at no Black radio stations or anything in the States. The song was just blowing up. Meanwhile, Silk and H-Town, they were going to all the Black radio stations, getting all the love. And their song was being played like ours, but the people met them. You know what I mean? We wasn't getting it. So we were like getting word back to the people, kind of holding us responsible for that, like that action. I mean, we, in our minds, we were just some artists that signed to a label, and we was just doing whatever they, wherever they took us. You know what I mean? So once we realized we had to rein that in and get control over that, because we were getting a bad rap, and for crying out loud, we came from Howard. How are they gonna see us as like, not being pro-Black? So we had to fix it. So we told the label, look, we're a product, but we're a human product in the marketplace. We can actually come back and report to you what we see in as product. That's the unique positionality we face. I want y'all to listen to us. And they basically gave us the kind of like, how LeBron in a situation, the lady told him to shut up and dribble. Mm-hmm. Like, kind of like, we got that sentiment from the label, like, shut up and just let us do this business part. And we were so headstrong coming from Howard, we stood our ground. We're like, nah, I'm telling you, people want to hear Comforter. And they wanted to put out Baby I'm Yours, which I hated the music version of Baby I'm Yours, because we used to just play the piano and it sounded, those chords are from Let's Get It On by Marvin Gaye, if you really listen to that song. But when we had to add that, that's when I just did not like that. I just did not like that, right? But everybody loved the song. And so that was another thing. I made sure we did the video back at Howard to show and prove. Mm-hmm. We picked our models. Anyway, we told the label that, and they almost basically bet us. They were like, okay, we're going to show y'all. They put out Comforter with minimal support. Like, they had no money put behind anything. The video was by the same guy, but luckily Comforter kind of was a little better. But it was the same kind of dude, the same abstractness. Like, it was, no marketing push whatsoever. But the crowd, the fact that the people really did mess with Comforter, they supported. Back then, it wasn't a big consulting stations. There was still phone calls. It was like driving the spins for the program directors. And they were calling up for Comforter. So Comforter didn't even ship that many because they didn't get that support. But it went gold immediately based on pure love from the people. And the label had to go ahead and put a little bit of support behind it until they got to the top 10 and they let it go. But that was with no label support. And then Baby I'm Yours came after that, and they put a lot of money into Baby I'm Yours, and way more than Comforter. And it basically charted in the same place with way more put behind it. But we got to get 3 singles. They would have probably only just given us 2 singles off the album, off that first album. But we got to get 3 singles out there in the marketplace, and all 3 of them went top 10. So, we won from that bet. But they looked at us as like some brash, young know-it-alls from Howard, let us show them. Mm-hmm. But it didn't tank like they thought it would,
Yeah. So a few other songs that I love off the first album, Together Forever and Sexual.
Oh, yeah. Together Forever is Mark Gaye, man. He had that song in high school. He brought that literally to the group. Like, very, very rarely did we have songs come wholesale by one person to the group. Usually we all by committee worked on the songs, wrote verses, hooks. But every once in a while, like the If I Ever song lyrically was by Carl. Together Forever was like that by Mark. He wrote that while in high school. Mm-hmm. And he and Darnell sung lead on that. And Mark, if you listen to that song, the piano, that's all Mark playing that piano in there. Like, he's a talented dude too. So real talented producer, man. Real talented.
So, like, was there a whole lot of competition amongst yourselves and the other male groups of that era, like your
You
Boys and
know,
Men's,
there wasn't
Jodeci's?
like that. I heard a little flair of something about Jodeci one time in some interview they did or whatever. But nothing really ever came of that. And the general vibe when we went on tours, like it was really love, like because everybody was a one of one. Nobody copied each other's sound. Boys and Men didn't sound like Jodeci. Boys and Men didn't sound like Silk. Silk didn't sound like Shy. Shy didn't sound like H-Town. Jay didn't sound like SWV. Like they all were one of ones, and like you really enjoyed listening to each one of those for what they put out as their hits. Their unique voices put that out. Nobody else could really sound like them singing that, and you enjoyed them. You know, I loved all of those groups out there. Even Jodeci, you know what I'm saying? They one of my favorite groups to this day. So yeah, for sure.
Okay, so you just mentioned how If I Ever Fall in Love album was put together in 2 weeks and they didn't have time to shop for outside producers. So with the second album, Blackface, was there a shift in that dynamic? Were the expectations higher from Gasoline Alley MCA?
Well, by the second album, Gasoline Alley, which was actually a joint venture with MCA, because Randy Phillips, who was running Gasoline Alley, even though the label was small, power-wise, Randy Phillips represented he was serious. So he was able to do a joint venture with MCA, right? But he started this company called Red Ant. I think he was dissolving this side of the coin artist-wise. So we ended up moving directly onto MCA proper for Blackface's album. And we were kind of like orphans that kind of got put into a new, but they already had their homies like Jodeci and Mary J and people like that were already on MCA, and they had projects kind of coming out, and there was like a lot of turnover for the Black music department during that time, doing our project, like 3 different Black music presidents happened. You know what I'm saying? So there was no really affinity to the projects by either one of them, and they were scared to take on budgets, that might not do well. So they were just doing remixes galore because song had already been proven to be a hit. They'll do a remix and get their name on it, still be a hit. You know what I'm saying? It was big back then doing that. So we were kind of getting like lost in the shuffle when we got with MCA for Blackface album. But we definitely had creative control based on the fact that we renegotiated our deal through Shakim with Flavor Unit. They were now our managers. Latif was management company for Blackface. And we were allotted, we had a cool budget finally, and we were allotted the time to make this album. And we were growing up too at the same time. So the album started reflecting just growth and just having been through the industry and just, putting out what we felt was cool for what we was feeling, Right. That's what we got. But, and it did moderately well at the time. I think in hindsight, a lot of people kind of dug it more, looking back on it than, at the time, because it was just a lot going on. Probably at the time, there was a lot of shifting of what music was being. Groups were now becoming kind of obsolete. It was heading to a direction, it was more hip hop, and the expression of hip hop and R&B coming together started looking much different than just a rapper on top of the track with somebody doing the hook. It was, you start seeing different ways of it being expressed, so this music was changing at that time. We were right at the cusp of that, you know what I mean? But yeah, if we could have got another, and then then Mark and Carl left the group at that point. So that kind of like made us, have to retool and figure things out, which we did. We still touring and stuff like that. We just got a lot of shows coming up, just did a lot of shows. But yeah, it was just this journey. It's been a journey, man.
Yeah. Well, before we get into all of that, I did want to mention my favorite song off of the Blackface album is Mr. Turn You Out.
Yeah, that was dope. That was dope. That was another one of Carl's pen. He was a talented writer. He wrote that. And I think Pocket and Brew and some people like that might have played on it. I'm not sure. I don't know if they got the credit, but yeah, that song was dope. That song was beautiful. It was like, it had that island kind of, it was a beautiful song. Carl wrote the hell out of that joint.
Yeah.
Experimental monogamy. Like, who thinks like that, right? He killed that.
Oh yeah. So when we had you on the show back in 2009, at that time you and Darnell, you were doing music as a duo.
Oh, yeah, D&G.
Yeah. So I remember that distinctly. And then since then you've added 2 members, Dwayne and G Fly from Men of Vision.
Yep.
For those that don't know, housekeeper. Just Google that song. So, like you said, you four have been doing shows
Lots of
since
shows.
then.
Yeah.
You know,
Big shout out
talking.
to Shane, Young Fly Entertainment. He's been putting us to work.
Okay.
So
a new album is coming?
Well, I'm doing a new album, a solo project called Off Track. It's an all acapella album where I'm actually doing the tracks acapella, like the trumpets, the strings, the drums, and getting them EQ'd to where they really bang. And then I'm doing songs on top of that, songs that I've done and doing some interlude stuff, and it's called Off Track. And so I'm working on that. But Darnell and me have some songs that we've been going back and forth with, sending each other, because of COVID. I don't learn Pro Tools and I know how to send sessions and stuff now. So we've been doing certain things and getting some stuff right. We're looking to come out with some dynamic. We're still fumbling around with different songs because we're trying to figure out what kind of sound we want to predominantly have a more continuity type of piece. We want a whole bunch of stuff all over the place, but we got a lot of music in it. So we're trying to figure that out. But yeah, we're working on some stuff.
Okay, good. So you and Darnell also own a record label, Hieroglyphics. You plan on signing any new artists, or is it a hub
we primarily
protect the brand?
We kind of like using it for us now, like to put ourselves out on and for brand familiarity. And once we get it a little bit more and have a couple of little cool little forays into it and some name recognition and brand recognition with it, we'll start like putting out, Hieroglyphics Presents, and we'll have some unique type of things that we'll be putting out, that we've been building on different ways of hitting the public, hitting the marketplace. So can't reveal too much on that because it's really some little cool, little clever stuff we've been kind of picking with. But yeah, that's kind of a setup for a brand, like a store coming soon type of thing. Mm-hmm. Grand opening soon. We got some stuff up our sleeve for that.
So has TV One reached out to you guys about doing an unsung episode?
Oh yeah, they reached out to us and a couple of times with the group, the original members, we kind of couldn't all agree on how we want to be represented, and because some of us are kind of leery about how Unsung might present some of the internal issues. I, for one, I didn't give a damn. I was like, that's 20, 30 years ago. People know that we grew and whatever. But because of that, we're not stopping. Darnell and myself, and I'm a pretty good writer. We're writing our own biopic, and it's taking place through Darnell and myself's eyes as this coming of age story about these two brothers, because he was actually my roommate freshman year, coming from Eastside High School, Joe Clark School, Lean on Me. He went to that school. Coming from Eastside High School, me coming from Brockton High, meeting at 17 years old at Howard as roommates with special gifts and talents, floating through and navigating that to become a part of something special like Shai. And then he and I still today together. It's going to be a biopic called Bond, which is an acronym. I'll tell you about that. But we're writing it now. We're getting through the Howard years, and now we're starting to embark on the Shai years, through our eyes, different moments, different events, different iconic moments, different dramatic moments between the group, different forks in the road, ways of thinking of us, different critical junctures, decisions made, not made, a lot of things in there that people might find interesting. And I'm doing it with the backdrop of music, in terms of what the skin of the culture was, the skin of the culture in terms of what music was happening. I'm really contextualizing a lot of where we were with what was outside of us, just to paint the picture so people can follow along like, oh yeah, So it's uniquely written, and hopefully we get the drama department in the fine arts at Howard to reenact some of the scenes. But we're writing the script now, and it's taking a while, but it's going to be worth it because it's written from a cool little perspective,
Nice. Yeah, so when we had you on the first time as well, you was a high school teacher in California, I think.
Lawndale, yeah, ECHS. Of course, I went on to get my master's and then my PhD. So I had to, I taught also at Georgia in Atlanta for a couple of independent Black schools. And I also, taught some courses at Georgia State, as a part of, my program. And created some programs as well. So just, took the educator piece to another level. I presented in many conferences, wrote papers, I got a couple of things published. Of course I got my PhD, so my dissertation my research was a real long piece.
Right.
So was my master's thesis too. But so all of that happened over that time from being a high school teacher, and I just kind of went on that trajectory. And it landed me here being like Dr. Bright, a researcher, and being also a member of Shai. you know. So it's a cool legacy. I'm proud of what I did out the blood, sweat, and tears. Not a sacrifice, but you know, can't take it from me.
Well, I mean, I guess before we like prepare to close, just talk about being in those two worlds. Like,
Well,
you
it's
know, hit
funny that you say that because those worlds were in me.
yeah.
And so I had to express them because paradigmatically speaking, I think we're making a mistake with the binary, like the either or, the
Mm-hmm.
win lose. We can easily create win-win if that's what we desire, like to see like that. Why can't? And so with the win-win, I'm also saying for yourself, both and instead of either or. If you have
Mm-hmm.
things inside of you that are dominant and prominent in terms of your psyche, you got to let that live. And if those things seem diametrically opposite by society standards, so be it. Like if those are both uniquely in you, you got to
Mm-hmm.
get that out. And then, you know, because it's in you, obviously it's something that's supposed to be max that out, you know? And so that's what I just try to attempt to see if I can do that in my life, like really max out on both the currents that I was a part of. And I got to a terminal degree in one, which is big, you know, a PhD, and then I was a platinum artist in the other situation with, you know, with some iconic music behind me. So that's pretty cool. I did something, but I'm
Right.
not stopping here. I'm still trying to put programs in place. One I have called the Artist and Scholar Initiative, where I'm basically trying to join W.B. Du Bois's mindset and mentality with Booker T. Washington's mindset and mentality around skilled trades, and seeing that as a people in any ethnicity, whatever the solution set that you desire to see in society for whatever the deficits are for your ethnic group, you need education needs to be malleable enough to where you can contour and create your own curriculum and your own sensibility training to create the results that could be the solution set for what you're going through, as opposed to one size fits all. Because it's not. As long as you have a paradigm like capitalism that's founded on inequity of supply and demand based on the dialectic. It's not it's haves and have-nots have to be the case for capitalism to work. So if you choose that for a system where there has to be haves and have-nots, then you're talking about any conversation talking about equanimity or equity is a fallacy on a system that's predicated on there being haves and have-nots. You can't have that discussion. So there's something inherently wrong with that we got to work our way through too. But in the meantime, we can really build our own mental ambidexterity by having skilled trades as a part of our skill set, as well as STEM classes that are college trajectory based. And our students being armed with both of those not only gives them a big skill set and a swatch to do entrepreneurialism while they're doing corporate, but then it ties the community together because they're respecting the blue collar people with the STEM people. It's a different kind of perception of who is in a society. In those spaces where the skilled trades are being done is neighborhood spaces and local businesses. So just a different respect level for old people and younger people, as well as different types of occupations and stuff like that. There is no better than the other and stuff like that, because best believe in Houston, when we had the storms, the only people that was working was the people who knew how to cut out a piece of the wall and go into your plumbing and do. They were getting the money because they had that skill set that usually is frowned on by people like, oh, you no, skilled trade is what's happening. Because if we all got our PhD stripped and they threw us in the doggone forest somewhere, what would we know? You know, but I bet you those people who know how to put up drywall and do all those different things, they would have a better understanding of how to take materials. And so, you know, we need all of that. You know what I'm saying? We need to be armed with that. Our babies need to have all of that in them. So I'm pushing for programs to try to instantiate those types of sensibilities in schools where there's Black principals, at least in the area that in Houston. So I've stepped to a couple of them and I'm getting some traction, you know, but things like that is what I'm kind of on in terms of what I'm using my PhD in this to kind of approach more than the classical teaching at a university. I'd rather be outside the academy and be in the streets doing work with, you know, people that look like me.
I like that. I like that. So what's something about you that would be surprising for your fans to know?
I'm real simple, but not basic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not flashy. I'm not really over the top in that regard. I'm just real, you know, and I'm really introspective. Like I wouldn't have been, if I wasn't a tall dude in the group that people always constantly kept coming up to and making me talk, I would be the most introspectful, like introverted type. I could sit on the wall and watch forever. Like I'm not an extrovert at all. You know, it took a lot for me to be really comfortable in front of people just going at it and speaking my mind, you know. And I credit the industry purely for pulling that out of me. Like I would have been a different type of guy had I not been in the industry and being forced to be in situations where the brand depended on me, having conversations and cogent deliveries of mind states and stuff like that based on what we were thinking and feeling. Like I got put in positions to have to do things that I wouldn't have normally had to do. And it made me stand on mine a little more in terms of, you know, being extroverted and talking to people and, you know, sparking up. And then as a researcher, I had to ask a lot of questions and start really getting to the crux of how people think. So that kind of helped me really with my ability to understand and listen to a lot of different people in my world. So a lot of things kind of shaped me, but yeah, man, that's you know, that's the skinny of it.
Okay, cool. So before we close, feel free to plug whatever you need to plug. You pretty much already talked about what's next for you. I know you wrote a book, Lotus 3013.
Yeah.
And if you have any additional parting shots, you can leave us with another jewel as well.
Well, yo, the Garfield Bright experience, like you alluded to earlier, is my Instagram and my Facebook. Hieroglyphics is, you know, Shai's page, Shai, S-H-A-I, and, you know, Roglyphics, like hieroglyphics. But yeah, Lotus 3013 is coming out January 2022. And stay tuned for details on my IG page. I'm gonna start putting out some trailers and you get a little content. But it's basically, if you can imagine, in the year 3013, hip hop is believed to be a white cultural invention. History is cut off to where there's no way to see the proof that it's from Black and Latino males. And it's basically, if you can imagine, if you ever seen the movie Beat Street, if you could put Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and Harry Potter with Beat Street, you have close to what I just put together as a speculative fiction, a Black futuristic piece, a futurism, dystopian kind of novel. And it's dope. It's, you know, protagonist, antagonist, it's master set in the Satilians versus the Netics, you know, these telekinetic, telepathic brothers who protect hip hop's last bastion. Hooked up to their brain, and there's a big scheme going on to extract that X factor, that magnetic, ultramagnetic factor that hip hop heads seem to be able to have to keep everything fresh. And they want to apply that to their cities for their architecture and stuff like that, transfer it over to other venues of life to attract investors, but they have to have it come from an authentic source. So all those prisoners are fodder for their new civilization building mechanisms, unbeknownst to public society, because there was, anyway, it's a lot to it. But you know, you'll want to check it out. Lotus 3013 is coming out in January, and my twins did the score under my narration. It sounds like a movie. Darnell from the group gave me the song Destiny to put into, and I wove it through as like a stream of consciousness piece after each chapter. It's a song we did with KRS-One back in the day, and it fits the plot so perfectly. And so, yeah, that's coming out. It's a big deal. It's going to be the audio book and the ebook for $20, for both of them at the same time, only for $20. And so
Group Shai. Thank you, sir. Thank you for sitting down with me again.
Thank you for having me again.
All right. Enjoyed the conversation as always. You're always dropping gems for us, you know, leading us down a path of righteousness and enlightenment. So, stay on his IG page, catch Shai on tour when they come to your city. Show them love. And for Stop, Look, and Listen, I'm your host, LaTroy Gardner. See you next week. Peace. Peace and blessings.